Who is Steve Ratner? Well, he's many things. He was vice chairman of the investment bank Lazard, so he's a banker for a while. And then he actually co-founded the Quadrangle Group, which is a private equity firm. Private equity is also in finance, and it's a step above. Mitt Romney was in private equity, so we're talking about the big leagues there. He eventually became President Obama's car czar, but he ran into a little bit of trouble at about that time. Turns out that he was involved in a scheme where they were doing paybacks to get the money of the New York State pension funds. Now, so they would go up, as we're about to explain here and show you the details of, they would offer money and other rewards like making a movie for one of the guys running the pension funds, etc., to try to get that contract. Because if they get the contract from the New York State pension, they're going to charge an enormous amount of money on that, right? So, well, the New York State Attorney General's office busted him on that. That was run by Andrew Cuomo at the time. He's now, of course, the governor of New York. And at the time, Cuomo said Steve Ratner was willing to do whatever it took to get his hands on a pension fund money, including paying kickbacks, orchestrating a movie deal, and funneling campaign contributions. You see, that's how politics works, okay? Now, they used a guy named Hank Morris, and apparently so did the Carlyle Group, also a very connected group that also gets government contracts and is also involved in private equity. And what did Mr. Morris do? Well, he pled guilty to a felony count of violating the Martin Act for paying kickbacks, and he went to prison. Now, he was a political consultant all these guys hired to do their paybacks. Now, did they go to prison? Did Steve Ratner go to prison? Did the Carlyle Group executives go to prison? Oh, no. Oh, Hank Morris has been doing paybacks on our behalf so we can make millions and millions of dollars? I am shocked and chagrined to find that out. Tut, Hank Morris. So Stephen Ratner wound up paying a $16 million fine. Did he go to jail? Of course not. Now, of course, Andrew Cuomo was the New York State Attorney General in 2010, so he's paying it to New York. And by the way, $6 million of that 16 was to the SEC. So he pays fines. Now, did he admit he was guilty? Of course not. I mean, he's a beloved financier in America. If you commit a crime and you're a middle-class guy, you will be crushed to oblivion. My God, if you smoke pot, you're in a world of trouble, right? But if you're one of the top bankers in the world, you never have to admit to any crime. Oh, I made a ton of money off of that? Let me give you 16 million of it back. Cost of doing business. Not only that, I don't even have to admit I did anything wrong. No admission of guilt. Okay. But to be fair, there were other consequences. He was banned from appearing in any capacity before any public pension fund within the state of New York for 5 years. Oh, is he going to be okay? And also banned from associating with any investment advisor or broker-dealer for 2 years. Wow. Originally, they were talking about a lifetime ban. You're telling me that in a couple of years, Steve Ratner can go back and get the New York State Pension Fund again? And the answer is, yep. Boy, you got him. Okay. Now, why? But it's because, here's one other thing I forgot to tell you about Steve Ratner. He was a huge Democratic fundraiser. Oh, so he's got both pieces of the puzzle. He was both in the financial world as a very important executive and a rich one, and he gave money to politics. It's a minor miracle they busted him in the first place. I bet it was some guy in the Attorney General's office in New York who was like, this looks really bad. And the higher-ups were like, damn it, now we got to do something. Okay, we'll do a slap on the wrist and he'll move along. So Steve Ratner pretty much says, that's kind of what happened. Quote, looking back, it was a bit like the half-life of a radioactive isotope. Every few months, the intensity of what happened seemed to go down by half. So he says, in the beginning, some politicians gave me their money back. One guy gave him back $500 donation. He said within a couple of months, just a couple of months, the politicians were back asking for more money. That's how this game is played. And guess what happened? All of a sudden, Stephen Ratner, he's not a pariah. No, he's right back in the middle of things. He's now made appearances on, and does so regularly, MSNBC's Morning Joe, ABC's This Week, also on Fox News Sunday. He's writing for the Financial Times, Politico, the New York Times, a respected member of society. All you need is money, and you need to spread it around to the right people, okay? So here's my favorite one. who attended Steve Ratner's 60th birthday party. And you'll begin to get a sense of why Steve Ratner never actually got in any trouble for doing, when you talk about kickbacks, that's bribery. That's something you should go to jail for, right? Here's the 60th birthday party list. Mayor Bloomberg of New York, Barry Diller, Jamie Dimon. Of course, Barry Diller is a huge media mogul. Jamie Dimon is a huge banking mogul. Harvey Weinstein, another media mogul. Senator Charles Schumer of New York, Ralph Lauren, Brian Roberts, who's another huge media mogul, Fred Wilpon, Arthur Sulzberg Jr., by the way, who is the publisher of the New York Times. You got friends in high places, you ain't going to jail. You're right back in the party circuit. Speaking of which, he was invited to the holiday parties of Vice President Joe Biden and recently to the going away party of Hillary Clinton. His wife also used to work for Hillary Clinton. This is how incestuous it is, okay? He's back in good graces. Before, they're like, oh, he's the car czar, but you gotta go. Oh, we're gonna come right back in. In fact, he campaigned for the Obama campaign this time around. As he explained, after a couple of months, everybody forgot and wanted my money again. So when they asked Barry Diller, hey, why do you continue to associate with this guy who was doing something really bad? Quote, whatever complications there were, I never thought he was culpable. No, of course not. Your rich friends are never culpable. And when asked about it, Michael Bloomberg said two interesting things. First, I love this. At the time when he was asked about it, he said, hey, Steve, quote, the only thing wrong with you is your golf game. I'll see you on the links. Oh, did I mention that he runs Michael Bloomberg's money? He handles his money for him while Bloomberg's in office. Gee, I wonder why he thinks he's a swell guy and he didn't wind up going to jail. Instead, he's going to these lavish parties and being touted by the top people in the world. Final quote from Bloomberg is my favorite. He said, I never heard anyone say they wouldn't invite Stephen Ratner to a party because of what was happening. Well, I wouldn't want to ruin your parties. See, the bottom line is they don't give a damn. You do something wrong, you do bribery, you do highway robbery, who cares? As long as you're part of the right crowd and you spread that money around to the politicians and then you hire them for jobs, etc., they're always going to have you back in the high life. Lickety split, no problems whatsoever. And that's how Washington works, and that's why the rest of the country hates you. But in that bubble, they don't get it. They think they're the toast of the town. They think the rest of the country is a bunch of suckers. Why do you think congressional approval rating is 9%? Why do you think the one profession that is just as bad as the politicians is the bankers? Because we're not dumb. We know this is what's happening. JR.
Now, thinking about it, I remember we've done a few stories about how politicians, maybe freshman representatives, senators get in, and they spend a large majority of their time trying to fundraise. So in that position, if you're thinking, this is my career, I want to stay here and maybe do something, they're thinking, well, there's an easy way to get some more money, and I don't have to keep cold calling extra people. Well, Steve Ratner gave me some money. And then that way, I'll stay in office and maybe I can do something. Not saying that's what they're all doing, because we know they're all corrupt. But they're thinking, at least I won't be on the phone so much. I can get some big donors in regularly, and that'll be fine. Let's not have to deal with it all the time.
Oh, no.
And the relief may really be on a lot of these ones that really want to do something if some campaign finance changes.
Look, I have a quote from Matt Stoller later in the show that goes partly to what you're saying, and I want to come back to that if I have time, about what the real motivations of these politicians are. But the bottom line is, look, man, when you get out, you got to get paid. You know how much money Bill Clinton has made since he left office? $125 million. It's largely from the people he deregulated. Most of it is from the banks, okay? So you don't want to upset the bankers. They're the ones who are going to give you the money. Forget when you're in office, after you retire. The whole thing's corrupt. The whole system's infected completely by the virus. But Jerry, you made a point in there that is really good, and I really haven't heard anybody else make, and I frankly hadn't thought of it. The reason why they care about the big bundlers so much is, one, it helps them to get reelected, et cetera, et cetera. But two, then they don't have to stay on the phone that long. Like, in order to get to 100,000 or 1 million or whatever, you could stay on the phone with nickel and dime donors for days and weeks at a time, or you just pick up the phone and call Steve Ratner, he sends you $1 million, you're like, oh, thanks God, I'm going to go golfing. That's a motivation that is probably incredibly real that people are not taking into account.